Today in Corinne's Picks, we have the wonderful work of Carol Brighton. Carol, welcome to Corinne's Picks. I'm so glad you were able to appear in this episode.
Nice to see you, Corinne.
You know, it's been several years since we've seen each other, but it seems like I've known your work for a lifetime. You've done remarkable things that have strong themes of Buddhism, social justice, and you're a remarkable paper maker. Can you tell us a little bit about your art and what you're trying to do?
Oh, that's wonderful. I'd be happy to. So I make images in 2D format. I make paper, and I make prints, and I make paintings. And the work is about my life. There are places that I've been to, or walks that I've taken, or imaginary spaces, and interpreting this in a mix of the real world visual sense, and also everything that's below sea level, below what we see in from our ordinary view.
How did you get started in art? How did you begin your career as an artist?
Oh, well, probably as a kid, I suppose. I first started painting and doing watercolors and drawing as a teenager. It's my first memories as a teenager, and just always kept going at it. So,
Did you study painting in school? I mean, in university? Are you a trained artist or you self-taught?
I did train. I went to the university, and I was an art student at the university, and I learned all the fundamentals, the technical aspects of the craft of printmaking and painting, and also paper making, which was sort of a surprise because it wasn't on the regular school schedule, and there just happened to be a visiting teacher, and my drawing teacher let us go and make paper, so that's where that started.
But I noticed that most of your work have had strong links to Asia. How did that start for you? What was it about Asia that made you, explore the religion, the aesthetic in your art?
I think that is probably one of my oldest memories is dreams and thinking about Asian people appearing in my dreams. And then in high school, I got a job at a Chinese restaurant, and I've just been there. It's been part of my life, and I finally started studying Chinese language in my mid-20s, and then I went to China, and I've gone to China many 40 or 50 times, and then into Tibet and India and Southeast Asia, and it's very compelling for me. It feels kind of like home. And the first time I went there, I had this feeling of having been there before, so it was a sort of deja vu experience, and I just enjoy it. I feel very much a part of it, and I like the visual aesthetic a lot of the paintings, and Chinese paintings have been a big influence on my point of view as an artist, the sort of ethereal quality, and
your paintings also, they're very, very deeply spiritual. From the time that you walk into your home studio, there is a serenity about the way you live your life, the way you've decorated your home, your garden. I hope that we can start getting into some of the images because we're kind of talking abstractly without actually seeing the work. So hopefully, I will stop talking, and you'll do hopefully most of the talking and describe some of your work. The first four images I do know is basically of your paper making process, but hopefully as we get into your art, you can describe the spirituality, but also the history and your thinking behind some of the works. So let's look at the first image. I think it's image number 1.
All right. That's my hands in a vat of water with pulp. So I'm agitating the vat to mix up the paper fibers in preparation for casting a sheet of paper. So actually that's in my backyard. And here is casting a sheet of paper. So I'm dipping the screen, the paper making mold, into the vat. And this is similar. This is a vat of indigo pulp, indigo dyed pulp. And I'm casting a sheet.
Were you able to study paper making in China or Tibet as well, or just here in the Bay Area?
In Tibet, I learned Himalayan paper making, and actually I was part of a project in Tibet to help reestablish paper making in Tibet. So I learned a lot up there over a period of many years from the Tibetan paper makers and from the culture as a whole. And I did visit paper makers in China, and everywhere you are with a paper maker, there's something to learn. Everyone around the planet, it's gone through many changes as paper making has circled around the planet, and everywhere you go, paper makers have a little bit something to teach. So
okay, there's I guess image number 5.
Okay,
This
so
is, yeah.
that is some indigo pulp on a screen. And it looks like I'm just kind of tamping down a little collage element that's in the cast sheet. Oh, and now we've moved away from paper making. These are drawings, and this is a drawing from a series I did on refugees. And this is a group of refugees standing on the curve of the earth. These are oil pastel drawings.
What is your opinion on the refugee crisis that's going on right now?
What is my opinion?
Yeah, why did you do this series on refugees? You must have some kind of feeling about what's going on.
It's very powerful, very, very compelling, and I think it's one of the most critical issues the world faces right now. We really do have enough resources to take care of everyone, and I just find it so discouraging that we haven't been able to see our way to take care of everyone. And my hope is that in the future that this crisis will teach us that we can take care of everyone.
Okay, wonderful. So I guess as we look at these images, we should think about that a little bit.
This is a painting I did after coming down from Tibet, and I did some hiking in Tibet, including hiking around a sacred mountain. And after coming down from Tibet, I would say it was probably one of the most powerful influences in my life. The experience of being there and being with the people and studying the culture and the practices. So this is a kind of a memory of ascending, going up into the mountains.
I know that you used to take you used to have a business taking tours from the Bay Area to Tibet. Are you still doing that?
Taking I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I know that you used to, like, at least once a year have tours arranged where you would arrange tours for people to go visit Tibet.
Yeah, no, I haven't done that in a number of years. In like maybe, I don't know, many, many years.
Okay.
But I did used to do that. I took a lot of groups into China and into Tibet and Southeast Asia, a couple to India. That was before I started teaching. And the last 10, more like 15 years, I've been teaching to support my studio. But before that, I supported my studio by taking tour groups. I was a tour manager. So those were fun days.
These images of the scenic views of mountains, was that part of the tours that you took people on in Tibet?
Yeah, well, much of the time that I spent in Tibet was part of a project. It was called Paper Road Tibet. And there was 4 of us that started this project at an orphanage in Lhasa. It was a nonprofit income generating project, paper making project, so that this orphanage could generate an income making product, and that was paper. So we spent a number of years bringing in equipment and reestablishing paper making in Tibet. So the students at this orphanage could make paper, and then paper added, I think they call them added on projects, like they'd make things out of paper and sell them. And it's still ongoing, even though our group has turned the project back over to the orphanage and they're running it, the paper making is still ongoing. So we considered it quite a success. And so much of my time in Tibet was spent on that project.
So the next image is really a beautiful piece. I think that's also made out of handmade paper as well, is it?
Yes, it is. That is from the I Ching series. And the I Ching is a very old Chinese text, and I think that they don't even know for sure when it was written, but it's a text, a kind of a philosophical text, and it's a guide to ways of living and ways of thinking about life. And it has to do with these 6 lines that they call hexagrams. And this is one of them, contemplation and view.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes left before we go to a PSA. So maybe you can describe a few more images for us.
Okay, so this is enso. It's indigo paper with an orange enso. Enso is a Japanese word, and it's a circle. And it's kind of a sacred circle. So this is a cast sheet of indigo paper with this large poured pulp enso circle.
Wow, this is beautiful.
This is about dreaming, and it's a collage. It's handmade paper that has elements of collage cast into it. And I used to do a lot of Chinese calligraphy. I studied Chinese calligraphy, and I would do it on really thin paper and lay it into my handmade paper. So the calligraphy piece on here is calligraphy that I did, and the stairway is a monotype that I did and cut out and put it into the handmade paper. So it's a kind of description of the ascent into the dream, up a stairway and then into the dream, and this sort of memory of that ascent into the dream.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break to show some PSAs. And then when we come back, we'll talk some more about your images. Thank you so much, Carol.
Okay, thank you.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
It only takes a moment to make a moment.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
We were talking about her recent travels and her work on images of Tibet, based on Tibet and based on China. So, Carol, are you still here?
I'm still
We
here.
have Carol via Skype. So let's continue to look at some more of your images.
Okay. Okay, so this one is a monotype. That means it's a single image that was printed on a regular etching press. And this is from an ongoing series about being in the mountains. And that would be being up in the Himalayas and hiking and being there with the people. And this is a journey about circling around a sacred mountain. Okay, and this is silver on indigo paper, and it's a collage piece. It's partially printed and partially collage about sailing in moonlight. And it's more or less about a psychic space or a boat in the great sea of consciousness. So we have full sail.
How do these images come to you? I mean, is this through meditation? I know that you also are a Buddhist. How do you decide what images to create in your work?
That's a good question. They just kind of come into my head. Sometimes they come in when I'm drawing. They come out of the work in process. I'll think of something else that'll take me forward. Or sometimes when I'm just waking up in the morning, I'll get an idea and I'll do a quick sketch of it. And sometimes when I'm out for a walk, I'll get an idea from something that I see out on the street or in the hills or something. Ideas come from all over the place, everywhere. It's the world is an incredibly rich resource, and of course, so is our mind.
I think
It's the fundamental resource.
I vaguely remember. Did you do a series called Meditation or based on meditation? Was that Doors that you did?
The doorways I've been doing those for many, many years. The doorways are sort of a metaphor for this transitional space between present moment now and where we may be going next. And so they're sort of a stand-in for transitional spaces. I don't know so much that they would have come from meditation. They just come from living, you know.
Right. But I do remember. Did you do a meditation series? Was there a series based on meditation that you did? I think I vaguely remember paintings hanging in your kitchen based on meditation. I mean, this is like year 2000, so it might be.
I don't know specifically, Corinne, but I would say uh, if it's what you're heading for, I don't know, but I would say that sitting in silence has a very powerful influence on my life and my work. So I don't know if I do work specifically based on sitting and trying to be silent and sitting, but it's a very strong influence. So I think it probably influences all of my work. It's kind of a reference point to go back to. So yeah, it's a big influence.
Okay, so let's look at some more images, please.
This is handmade paper also, and it's called 7 Steps. And oh, it's an imaginary idea about, there's a lot of references in many religions about it. There's 7 steps to sort of an awakening, or 7 steps to heaven, or something. It's a process. So it's a reference to a process. And the circle of gold is poured gold leaf that I ground up and mixed with a very fine pulp. And I just kept drawing a circle over and over again until I got this circular space, which is also the enso that we talked about earlier. This is handmade paper. This is kozo, and with gold leaf and collage. And this is called the Great Mountain, Mount Kailash. And this is a reference to a trip I took where I hiked around a sacred mountain out in Western Tibet. And this mountain has 4 great rivers that come off of it. And the blue lines that you see coming down are reference to the great rivers that come down off of the Tibetan plateau. And this is just a reference to that circumambulation around the mountain. And very, very powerful influence on my life and on my thinking in general. So it's been part of an ongoing series. Yeah, so this is from the series, the same series of The Great Mountain. And this is a little bit more of a distant view of looking at the mountain. And it's kozo fiber, which is, kozo is from the mulberry family. So it's prepared kozo fiber. I prepare this fiber by cooking it and beating it. And I cast these sheets and lay, while the pulp is still wet, I lay all these collage elements in it. And this has elements of collage that are references to China on one side of Tibet and India on the other side of Tibet. And my experience of being up at this altitude, on the Tibetan plateau. Okay, so this is a series that I started several years ago after visiting my sister, and we were walking in the woods on the mountain behind her house up in Washington State. But we were walking, and anyhow, I got back to work and on my press, and I started a series of paintings about being in the trees and walking with my sister. And this is one piece out of that series that is sort of a nighttime or dreamtime reference to the walks with my sister.
That's really beautiful. I love that one.
Well, thank you. I like it a lot myself. Okay, so this is called Angels Came This Way. It's indigo paper, indigo linen paper. Actually, a friend of mine made this particular sheet of paper. But I did a print on of feathers in silver. So it's silver feathers on dark blue indigo paper. And this is a reference to my younger sister passed away not too long ago. And I just did this in honor of my sister, because she really was an angel, I felt. So that was in honor of her and her life. Angels came this way.
So where are you going with your art? Like what is your goal right now in terms of where your paper making or your paintings are heading?
I'm hoping to get closer to the bone, I guess I would say. I just want to keep working and become more and more clear about what I'm saying. And so experience counts for a lot, and practice counts for a lot. And I think mainly I just want to keep working and clarify the imagery, clarify the ideas. So like that. I don't know specifically images. I mean, I have a journal full of thumbnail sketches that I've done recently of work that I'm going to be pursuing over the next months. So, but I would say in general, it would be just to get closer to the bone.
So we have about 3 minutes. We have like 1 minute left. And then we'll end this show. I just want to get from you, who are some of your influences in terms of art right now?
Specific artists, I know a lot of artists, of course. There's a lot of artists in my community that I feel are influential because of the support, the kind of moral support they give me as an artist, because it can be quite isolating. So it's very, very supportive to have other artists around. And I would say, you know, in my lifetime, there's been many artists who've gotten to be quite famous, who are really influential, just to be able to go and see their work in museums. And like Barbara Hepworth is a sculptress, and her work is so simple and elegant. I find that very inspiring to see her work. And Joan Mitchell is very influential as a painter. She's so speedy. I like her speed and her generosity. And Helen Frankenthaler for her flow. And I think many artists are really influential, not just, you know, current artists, but artists that we can see historically.
Okay, so Carol, I'd like to invite you to come back to Corinne's Pick. We're going to do a part 2 show. There's so much of your work I'd like to show the audience. Thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, thank you, Corinne. It's been wonderful. Great to see you.
Okay, thank you.
I'ma show you how to party.